happening. All the information. It's 3:00, and I'll call the meeting to order. So I see we got the pledge of allegiance on here, so. Meeting.
United States of America. To the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Okay, so the purpose of the meeting today is to render decisions. First of all, we're gonna meet with the abatement board, the abatement taxes for the town. And we had let's see, for the town, we had two abatements. One, the collector of income taxes has put forward some of the travel trailers. We already took action on that, and it's meeting on that last week. For the town, I had one other abatement, the request of Matthew and Louise Bruno of 296 Sweet Hollow Road. And I know there was some discussion, we didn't know an exact amount, but it was provided by the tax collector, and this is as of August 15th. Be effective to August 15th, so it's not slightly. So it was passed this around. But they're still released. Got one. So total amount due as of August 15th, the due August 15th is $2,938.70. So we heard from the party seeking the abatement. So what is what's your pleasure?
I think we should ask them to put their heads together with Betty and make a plan.
Maybe you need to make a plan with that too.
I'm not really sure we can see. We could probably suggest that, but we either approve the abatement or not.
I'm leaning towards not.
And which one was on?
Let me see.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I would agree with that. I mean, this was a classic. This is a case of where an individual, my own opinion, do not have their spending priorities in order. And she made no effort to find additional income through a job. She obviously has a piece of property there. It's not the first time she's coming to seek an abatement. And obviously, if they can't afford the house, taxes on it, in my opinion, they need to liquidate that, sell it, and seek it out. Waste away. In my opinion, I don't think that we should penalize, but actually, in my opinion, an abatement is just spreading the costs on to the rest of the taxpayers.
Not a motion, do we have a motion? Not a second.
I haven't moved, I'm just discussing.
I guess I'd take your wording, Brian, and put it into a motion because I agree with you that I don't believe it's our place to get into personal budgeting of citizens. I don't know if anybody will second that, but I say it. Refuse the abatement.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? I will just add that I know from personal experience for years, I've worked with tax collector. And on some really hardship cases. And she's more than willing to accept payment. More than willing.
And I'd like to add that Dawn and a few of the others suggested how she could work with the money that she owes the fee side.
Yeah.
And work some kind of a payment out for that. I think she has to work her payment.
She needs to do some. So
That's kind of a footnote. I heard what you said, but I think Brian's right. We've had this motion, have to vote on it, but then we can always write Select and footnote that we recommend you. She can say stop it, but at least we've tried to help her.
yeah,
So you,
Probably isn't the whole board to make too many recommendations that intrude into individual private lives on budget. The other hand, very clear to me that she needs financial counseling, and that is available. And how that gets communicated, perhaps in the conversations that she has with tax collector. But the counseling program to come up with a plan to deal with these obligations is what it seems to me. She
yeah, very much so. Okay, if there's any other discussion, then all in favor of the motion that the press the deny. You with me? You signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nay. The ayes have it, the ayes have it. Okay, the next one, I guess we'll we will adjourn the town. Yeah. Meeting. Now, next property is a property located looking to abate village tax, so we need the village for that. Yeah, as a reminder, this village residents who work on this one. David Cassini's 49 4th Street. And he came to look to abate his taxes. Village is wanted. $1,000. You said
62. That's what it says here for 24,000.
yeah, $1,834.62 as of 7/15/25. So is there a motion on that?
I struggle with this one because I think it's something, I think it's really hard to refund. Get his financial situation together. And I think it may be coming up with a plan to spread his taxes over a period of time. To pay it.
I understand he has certainly some problems, issues. Again, he's going about it the wrong way. You mentioned it was filling his credit card. But if you let that go, absolutely let your credit card go.
Oh,
Absolutely. You need a house to live in a house. You protect that house. Long. You let the credit card go, that's unsecured debt.
we also noted that we had found rent, $800 rent that he had previously.
And, it's back to the same thing, those of us in the village. Taxpayers would have to make that difference if the village is not going to be receiving. The village tax rate, I don't know what it is. As we know, limited tax base in the grand list in the village. Oh. That's just my. Anybody can fix it. situation.
You're in the middle.
Second. I mean, you feel. Feel sorry for the situation it's in, but what a civil authority. Should be condoning that kind of a situation. I mean, not that we condone. It's not our job to do the financial, right? I didn't say that, but. And I'm sure. Betty in the village can look out some kind of a payment.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah, at least $10 a week, whatever.
But if you look at the line you make, then we have to pay them. Well, we don't need for a payment.
Yeah, we'll have the next year too, I think that. I think after this year, where you gonna be next.
But he said he was gonna be in the same situation.
So when so he'll be back next year,
It's on the, up until his.
and
That's it.
Customer. 18. If you finding a second.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you know, that's just my.
I think we did the same with this fellow. Last time, giving some suggestions. Needs to pick up on, needs some help. He needs to pick up on our suggestions. They don't indicate if he was going to qualify for social security.
Yes.
In the near future.
Yes.
The only way you're gonna speak.
Is. Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor of request for abatement. See, saying aye. Opposed, nay. Everybody's clear to have it. Carries. Okay, now you will adjourn the village board of abatement. And go into the appeals grievance decisions. With Amy Raymond at the front of the 6 Highgate. We have an inspection committee. And who was the chair of the inspection? Right.
Mr. Collins and I discussed it and we voted you the chair.
So you have a report. And all members of the board have the report.
It's the very first page.
Oh, there we go. I didn't hear about that. That's all right.
Okay, so the inspection committee was John Collins, Matt Waller, and Randy Draw. So we went present, Penny was there.
The report, which is relatively brief, is on page 2 here. And essentially, we looked at the property. We first looked at the buildings, inside the buildings, and they appear to be consistent with what the listers has found. We found no issues to raise relative to those elevations. I think that the agreement principal issue was related to the wetlands and wetlands on the property. And we frankly wrestled with this bit because we did see evidence that there might well be additional or have been additional wetlands on the property beyond what's shown in the map. Also, that all looked at maps previously by other state agencies that are inconsistent with what's shown on maps that we see for listing purposes. My understanding is that our responsibility, though, is to, for consistency among other things, to look at what's on the listing report. Now, that report, as I understand it, was done a number of years ago, and we all know that land changes, things get wetter, things get drier, other things move around. It's not a consistent. And so we did see what we think is evidence that there has been more water, but we didn't see the water there today. We saw evidence of call it trails where water has flowed down, but we didn't see any water there when we looked at it on Monday. So that's a concern in terms of what was on the map, where there is apparently some wetlands. We didn't see anything that was tremendously inconsistent with that on the day that we inspected it. Now, that being said, I know that I think from personal experience that all of us have looked at maps produced by other state agencies, we have some significant inconsistencies on an agency to agency basis. But at the same time, my understanding is our responsibility is to look at, again, for consistency across properties, what's on the maps that we are given as far as what's wet at the time this was done. Now, the difficulty is, as we all know, you can have a flood, you can have a fire that will change something that we're looking at and make it materially different than what we have. But we don't have the ability to go when it comes to wetlands and look at every property to say, have all properties changed because they're all different. We look at this property and we didn't see anything that was materially different than what was on this map. We didn't see any large amount of wetlands. So on that basis, we did not find evidence sufficient to allow this board to make a recommendation to make a change. Now, that being said, when this goes to state and the Division of Property Valuation, Joe Remmick's operation, I think that's the next place that would go. And I think they may have the ability to do that because they have information that is not available to us as a lay board. That perspective, they may do it differently, but we did not see anything. That the rest of the members, is that consistent with what you said?
I would say that is what we all reported in the piece. I'd add that I spent some time on agency websites researching this before coming in today. And at the bottom of lot 2506, every map that I could find shows 2506 as the originating portion of a stream that flows south directly out of that property through multiple other properties. The stream is on multiple state maps in 2506, but it's not a wetland, but it's very clearly the stream is drawn all the way to the driveway of 2506. In addition, I'd add that every map that I could find shows lot 14 has the upper portion shows a wetland, but that is not on the lister's map. And that is, as a board member, that's frustrating. As a resident, that would be at the best misleading or incredibly case for frustration. So I don't know, and I'm not qualified to tell you that, but I can tell you that every map I found says lot 14 in the upper northwest corner is all colored in for green. And every map I could find shows a stream originating in 2506 flowing south out of that property, but there was no stream at that moment. So I'm not qualified to say that, but I will say that I also raised, we discussed, I'd love to see if somebody were able to split off try to put a building lot there, whether they'd be given permission to build in that particular area, because it sure seems inconsistent. But as far as the appraisal and what the listers did, I don't find a problem with that, but I certainly share the frustration of this being beyond my capabilities to determine what is and is not a wetland.
And as we looked at certain pieces of land that we thought they had been wet, we looked just the vegetation, you can see the cattails and so on and so forth. The vegetation in some cases is consistent with what we expect to see in didn't see puddle of water. And that's
Nor am I gonna climb down in there to see.
Now, I tried between yesterday and today to get hold of Joe Remick, who heads the valuation office, part of taxes, to see how they would approach it, and how they might have any recommendations for approaches. And unfortunately, we had to play a telephone tag last about 1 o'clock when I was in another meeting. And so I will be talking about it later, but you know, our meeting is here today. I do think that the Department of Taxes, you know, when they look at it as the next level of the field, assuming that this goes forward further, they may well decide that some really may be appropriate, but I don't know that. What we see right here, this is what we see.
I agree with the gentleman that I served with, but a couple of comments. I think probably the most important in my mind is we don't have the expertise, the Board of Civil Authority members, I don't think, to determine the wetland issue. A couple other comments is that I don't know when it happened, probably previous to this owner, maybe for family. There are drainage ditches on the property that farms were required back in the 70s in many cases to put in. We did see examples of them, but I don't think we saw any water. Unfortunately, I had a similar experience to this like 30 years ago, and this is what I learned from that. Land can be wet, but it does not qualify as a wetland. I'm not saying there's wetland there, but let's say we walk through there and it's spongy and damp and wet. That doesn't necessarily mean it qualifies as a wetland. I think if you look at the state, I think there's a state definition I saw the other day. So I agree with the gentleman that I served with that there could be, but I don't think we have the engineering qualifications to determine that.
Members of the board have any questions for members of the inspection? Well, it's pretty sad that the classification of the county is different than A&R. Because if you subdivided property, or typical example, the relicensing of a hydro dam and piping, you have to deal with the NRI, and ANR's regulations and pitfalls that they stick in your face. And if the bank is, if maybe or somebody else wants to sell a piece of property, the bank's gonna go by the ANR's regulations, not the independent. So it seems, I agree with Randy, but it's pretty sad that the listers in the town use a different source for wetlands mitigation than the state is setting forth. So, and like he says, this is what our listers are going by, and it's not the same as the ANR's. And it's a bad time to be looking for wetlands, you know, blocking a beat. It's the driest summer we've had for a while. And for to go and say that it's dry now and it hasn't ever been.
No, there's evidence that there is trails. So vegetation, I think this is something, I just, the broader issue of what we're talking about here, is I see some opportunity or need for legislation to clarify some of these issues much better than we have right now. And I also see that on the issue of having boards like us go out and do reviews for appeal purposes with zero training and zero guidance is a very poor policy. And it needs, that needs to be bolstered, needs to be changed. There needs to be some training for boards such as ourselves to know what we are in fact looking at, what our opportunities and choices are, who should be referred and involved in it. And all that stuff is missing, and that's not a good policy.
Well, if either one of you gentlemen want to work on the legislation, it comes, I also have a few other things on the board to see will already be addressed.
All we need is more laws.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know, you know, where this map that the lister used comes from. I don't quite remember
I think it's part of Gamma.
it.
Their assessor, it's the assessor's program,
Program.
which the
Comes from
state comes from
yeah.
the state. So it's not an independent,
Mhm.
just the town of Swanton's
No, understood.
map. It's the Gamma program, which is the state program they use for assessing.
It's the state approved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's something generally.
But it's
It's a state, it's a state program.
not certainly the first area of the state, the two agencies. Don't know what the other agency is doing. That's the, you know, that's. But there's definitely some need for improvement, big improvement there. Okay, so what's your pleasure on this, list report?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So this program is a state program. Do all towns and districts use that? program?
Yes, that's why it's a state program.
Okay.
It's every town,
No one differs.
right, every lister of assessors in the state of Vermont, towns or cities, all use the same program.
They, due to legislation and whatnot, my understanding is that everything is gonna be consistent across the state, just to who's what.
Use that.
Because it's not, it doesn't work like an appraisal system. It's not geared by current market or anything. It goes, they have to put in all the information on the property. And certain scoring on stuff, and then it comes up with just so that everyone's on the same scoring program or software, I should say.
There's still a lack of clarity. What's a wetland when appraisal was done originally, what's a wetland today? Because those things change.
Usually. However, it was in the phrase that's basically the tax appraisal, everything is based on what it was in 2007. The date of the last general reappraisal. And that's going to stay that way until it's estimated 2029, we're going to do a reappraisal.
Yeah, but you have to ask yourself, well, what if the property is under 3 feet of water today and it wasn't in 2007?
Yeah.
What consistency is that? What if the property is burned down? We certainly, if the property is burned down, you don't, in a reappraisal, appraise it at the 2007 rate. As far as real
No,
estate.
no, they can take it off.
If it's severely damaged by flooding. then we have to change it.
Yeah.
But,
Well, severely damaged by flooding, but does that mean that the land value has changed? Yeah, I can see the property on the land that's flooded changed, but you know, there's a lack of clarity as to whether the value of the property itself has changed. And again, that's why I raise the issue of also training boards like this. I don't know what training the listers get. I don't know what the listers are required to do in the event that there's been that kind of major change. Not that there was in this particular case that you could see.
yeah, I don't know, I'm familiar. I thought at one point I'd like to be a lister, but having doing this, I don't want to be. And
The lister's an elected position,
it is.
I'm not required.
Many towns
Yeah.
along the way.
But there is a lot of training they go through.
There's a lot
Yeah,
of
they
training.
And it's a tough,
They're-
a tough position.
Very tough. Difficult to get people to run for it now, and that's why some towns are going to pay assessment.
Yes, so they talked about that, whether we should do that statewide.
Well,
But it was,
Well, that was the target. Yes.
it was discussed in legislature
I would
over
say
the last couple of sessions. But I'm generally not in favor of a whole increase in bureaucracy, but at the same time, you gotta wonder, how do you have consistency statewide for evaluation by appraisal? Because certainly I'm not trained in that to go out and question ministers' work. I'm not in any position for that. Not from this position, no.
And when we do the statewide reappraisals, which we're hiring companies statewide to do this. So there will be presumably some consistency, and it'll be very interesting to see how situations like this come out.
So anyways, drill back in here, we discuss it, but. We had those in calls in state house. And we but back to the business at hand here of this appeal.
The absence of clear payment, big error. First, we have to also follow their guidance. And I don't know about wetlands, so I got pretty wet with the sewer.
As it will.
No, I believe that.
You were taking a motion.
I probably just did.
Go with it.
Perhaps I'd like to say something.
Keep the value. Keep the value.
Deny the agreement.
Deny the agreement. Is there a second? Seconded. Any further this time?
Was this supposed to be open to public comment?
Not take any. Evidence.
Thought this was an open public meeting.
Say. Hearing the board. Open the public can come. But they do not take testimony. Not further. The board is voting either yes. Or. Three options.
So I had looked at rules of procedures as far as hearings, and it stated that I should at least get an opportunity to get some pros and cons with a decision. And that was from the League of Cities and Towns on procedures specifically for grievances of taxes.
Did you make your comments last week?
I was supposed to get an opportunity to make another comment because we vote on this after you gave the decision.
Well, we've not taken any additional evidence. You can state your final opinion, you have 2 minutes to do that.
Can I go ahead now?
Yeah.
No, okay. I just wanted to circle back to grievance that's based on the inequity between property values, and I brought you full lots that were 50+ acres. I gave you comparables for other lots that were 47 acres, but were divided up between 2 additional lots. That was Hodgegoon. I gave you Betty Austin, who has 3 lots, and I gave you Joanne Bushy, who had 4 lots. And what I had stated was that there was a general inequity in the way that properties were being valued within the town, particularly if one tried to arrive at a per acre cost over 2 acres, because years ago, it was if you had land that might have been subdivided, but it hadn't yet been sold, you were being charged at a per acre rate for it, and it was being treated as if it was just additional and available land. Right now, and as I had pointed out to begin with, there's a huge discrepancy. But if I look at Mark Hodgegoon, he's $1,700 an acre for over his 2 acres that goes for this homestead. And Betty is 4,000 something an acre with how much she pays over an acre past her 2 acres. Mine is $7,600 per acre over my 2 acres of my homestead, and I get down to Joanne, who has 10 acres total, and her per acre charge from the town is $9,000 some odd dollars. So when the listers told you that the more land that you own, the less it's worth, the opposite is also working, meaning the smaller that your lot gets, the more that it's being valued at. And so now we're completely way off and out of whack. That Mark Hodgeboom has a 28-acre parcel and a 19-acre parcel, and his 19-acre parcel is being valued at $40,000. Except my 10-acre parcel is being valued by 2 10-acre parcels, are each being valued at, assessed at $90,000. So if you're hearing me, that means my 2 10-acre parcels are being valued by the town at $180,000. And his assessment card says $40,000. So when I came here, to me, this wasn't just an issue of wetlands and that portion of it not being equitable across the board. I'm telling you that in the town of Swanton, you have a huge amount of inequity with anybody who has contiguous property. And you should be able to arrive, even in this land schedule, at a per acre charge that's somewhat equitable between the people who are paying the tax base. So apparently, the more acres that you have, you're right, the less taxes that you pay. But it's so far out of whack that my neighbor who's right next to me, who lives in the Southern Growth District, who can put up hotels and all of these other things, his land, and he has access to 207. I have 1,500 feet of road that goes into my property that I have to maintain to get in and out of there. So here's somebody next to me, Southern Growth District, I'm in the agricultural district. I'm paying $7,600 per acre over 2 acres, and he's paying $1,700. There's something not right with this. So feel free to do a vote on it, but I really feel like by this board, I feel like I wasn't heard by the listers. I feel like I wasn't heard by this board, and I don't feel that I was given a fair chance to state my case.
So we do have. Second on the floor. Further. All in favor of the motion, then vote. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Nay. Okay,
Yeah, oh, same.
Say. Eyes appear to have it, eyes do have it. We will, bring the decision in writing, by the writing and the report. Any other business to come before the?
Do you want to put a minute?
Oh, minutes, yes, you've got minutes in front of us. Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Any motion has been made to approve the minutes?
Seconded.
And moved and seconded to approve the minutes. In favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Guys, here have it, guys who have it, there. Okay, no further business, a motion to adjourn. No more, and move, second. Second to adjourn, all in favor. Well, there's no discussion on the business.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
In these meetings,